Welcome back. What's good, homies? Welcome back to the Drafts and Draughts podcast. I'm Joe, aka Sultan. There is no Dave, aka Disaster, here today because Dave is currently on vacation, actually just a half hour away in Massachusetts, visiting some friends, visiting some family, his family and his wife's family, celebrating his 1-year-old's birthday. Good, hope he remembers it. Probably not. Um, Today's Thursday, June 20th, and today I'm going to be doing a solo show regarding Bestball tournaments, specifically on Underdog, because that's what I'm most familiar and comfortable with. I do think that there are a number of different places you can play Bestball tournaments on, including DraftKings, FanDuel. I think there's a website just called The Draft. I don't know. I could be making that up. But because our podcast is first and foremost dedicated to our one quarterback home dynasty league and to try to get some action going, get some conversations buzzing, educate people a little bit, not educate as if we know better, but just if there's anything that someone can take from the podcast and apply it to our leagues and get some, teach us something. That's the whole point of this. So, and I don't think many people out in our league have played it much besides either a redraft managed league or our one quarterback dynasty league. So what I'm going to be doing today is walking through just generally how a best ball tournament works, why I think it's helpful to play, to help, sharpen your proverbial fantasy football pencil and sword. And then also some strategies that I like to try to employ. You obviously can't always do it because at least on Underdog, the draft clocks are only 30 seconds. So it's hard to, you can't always think on your feet in those when you're trying to navigate the draft board. But and if there's time at the end, I'd love to go through and do a live Underdog draft, at least maybe the first 10 rounds on stream. And then if you guys have any suggestions as to how you might approach it differently, some different strategies you'd like to see, by all means, leave a comment. But let's move on to the draft review. I already did a recording 5 minutes ago and I didn't hit record. So I kind of already cracked into my Al Dente Telia Italian style Pilsner beer. I chose this because it should be lighter than your standard IPA, which I'm used to drinking. And this past Saturday, I had about the most drinks I've ever had in my life. I think we started drinking at 6 a.m. and finished at 2 a.m. The following day. Played 36 holes with Dave. Disaster. Kicked his ass in both rounds, mind you. And yeah, it was all day. It was a fun affair. We got a few guys from the league there. We got a few of our high school friends were there. So I opted to go for a lighter beer. I don't have a live crack on the air, but I will give it a sip on air. Oh, and like I said previously, for an Italian Pilsner, I expected that really bitter, almost I want to say dark aftertaste that it usually has. It reminds me of drinking almost like a Guinnessy aftertaste for most Italian Pilsners. That's probably not the right way to describe it, but you know what I mean. When you have like the Peroni or the Carlsberg or those European Pilsners, they always have that weird aftertaste, and this one doesn't have it. So it's really good, really smooth. It's got some notes of citrus and honey. So I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. But Dave, wish you were here. I wish I could get you out. I know you came out last night for dinner, so I don't expect you to be able to do an episode. But with that being said, let's move on to the OTQ, the one tough question this week. Dave, I actually do want to get your response to this because I think it's more than just best ball, even though you haven't done it before. But how do you think Dynasty has prepared you for either a redraft managed season or a best ball tournament? How do you differentiate redraft and best ball? And do you think they help well round you, or do you think they convolute the process and actually make it more difficult because you're constantly thinking about maybe the youth and upside that comes with Dynasty versus the point scoring, which is all that matters in best ball or redraft? I'll give Dave a chance to gather his thoughts. No. But yeah, I think Dynasty has undeniably made me a better fantasy player in general, because I also partake in fantasy baseball, which is a keeper league. And I think just learning how to negotiate and build relationships for trading purposes for a redraft managed season has been definitely helpful. Learning how to construct trades better around, thinking about the future versus the current. Regarding a best ball team, I don't think it translates quite as much, but I do think Dynasty has helped prepare for a best ball season because you get tapped into team situations, team competitions, depth charts way earlier in the process than maybe I would be if I didn't do my first drafts until July or August. I've been, I've only done 15 or so drafts this year. I know some people are well over 100 this late in the best ball season. But I already have a pretty comfortable idea of where players are going and what their ADPs are. I think that's going to help prepare me for the redraft season better. And I think Dynasty has helped inform a lot of those late round selections where I may be targeting a guy like Blake Corum because I think he's got a good opportunity and he fits in the scheme in LA. Whereas some people who may not be playing Dynasty may not be as dialed into the Sean McVay system and how he likes Blake Corum, and they drafted him in the third round, which is better capital than Kyron. And Kyron's been injured for 3 times in the last 2 seasons. I mean, there's little things like that, little notes like that. I think Dynasty helps prepare you for. Just like I think we'll see guys like Troy Franklin, who is super highly regarded in the Dynasty rookie draft process prior to the NFL draft. I think he was a lot of people's top 5 wide receiver, was regarded as a first round rookie pick. I think he was going in the 90s or early 100s on underdog before the NFL draft. And then when he fell to the 4th round, he started going later, obviously the 140, 150, 160. I don't know the ADP off the top of my head, but he's going well before other day 3 receivers like Javon Baker. And he's going well before the rest of that tier of player that all have the same draft capital strictly because he's been pumped up by his prospect profile. So I think Dynasty, and maybe that's to its detriment, Dynasty helps prepare you for thinking about the prospects and the team constructs early in the off. I think how best ball helps Dynasty is best ball drafts will help inform player trends, since ADP is fluid all off season. And I think, you know, it helps you start to identify players who are potentially undervalued and overvalued in Dynasty based on their single season prices. For example, like a guy like Devon A Chain is going late second in redraft, but he's going in the third in dynasty startup drafts. Tells me there's a disconnect in his value because why would he be going earlier in a single season format and yet he's still only 22? I totally get it why a guy like Derrick Henry goes earlier in redraft than dynasty because he's 30. But a guy like A Chain going that early tells me there's some arbitrage opportunity because if if the sharp money is on A Chain having a good season and he's going ahead of his dynasty ADP, and there's a chance for him to put up a monster season in year 2 based on his best ball ADP, there's a chance to buy him before that because his value in dynasty should only go up if he does achieve that expectation of a second round redraft output. Same with a guy like Rome. I don't have it off the top of my head. I think Rome's going in like the 6th or the 7th round of redraft, whereas Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors are going in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, respectively, for a 1 QB best ball draft. And to me, that says some people are slightly bearish on him relative to the other rookie receivers that are regarded as same tier. Running with that logic, I would not expect Rome to appreciate in dynasty value maybe as quickly as Marv or Neighbors would if they all were to achieve their expected outcomes for the season, at least relative to their peers, because he's not even if he goes out, puts up a 7th round caliber season, he's not going to get as much steam as a guy like Neighbors and Marv do if they put up 2nd round, 3rd round caliber seasons, if that makes any sense. Similar to like the JSN effect of last year where granted, he was a little pumped up. I think he was a late 5th, early 6th last year. If he doesn't put up a season, if he puts up a season similar to JSN, he's going to have the same exact, dead cat, bounce, falling rock, sword, catching a dull knife. I don't know. Fucking. He's going to have a similar, detriment to his dynasty stock next year. Because as much as people want to say, oh, well, you can't judge a guy off one season, especially not his rookie year. I mean, look at how people are treating JSN right now. He is being judged for his rookie year because it was so poor relative to our expectations. These are some things you can glean. But I guess the downside of looking at best ball versus even regular redraft or dynasty is that because best ball has such a unique strategy to it regarding stacking and specifically upside versus, ceiling matters so much more than floor in best ball. It's not exactly the best estimator for your ADPs when you get into your redraft season. Specifically, I'm thinking of like in the Superflex best ball tournaments that Underdog did. Guys like Tank and Nico get rocketed up because people are trying to reach for that stack with CJ Stroud, who's a first round pick in that format. And guys like Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, the guys who basically really good receivers that don't have that elite first round quarterback, they fall in the draft because they just don't have a stackable QB counterpart at the top of the draft board that people are actually reaching for. So you see guys like Devontae fall down the board a little bit. And that's no fault of Devontae's, just all that really matters in. Did I say Deontay Johnson? I meant to say Devontae Adams. All that matter, not all that matters, but one of the key strategies in best ball tournaments is to stack your quarterbacks with their pass catchers to get double points, which we'll talk about. So let's move on to what is a best ball tournament. So I have here, this is the Underdog website, and I'm on the NFL tab right here. And you can see they have a bunch of different options here. They have like the sprint, the eliminator, marathon, $15 entry, big dog, $500 entry, the mastiff, 1,000, best ball mania, which is the main contest, $25. But then they have the puppy, which is a $5 buy-in. And they all have roughly similar formats, not exactly identical, but one thing that normally will hold true is the actual roster format. So what you'll see here is for most of them, if they're not a super flex, obviously, you have one quarterback, three wide receivers, two running backs, a tight end, a flex, and 10 bench spots. And the scoring is just your standard 6-point per touchdown, except for quarterbacks passing. There's 4-point touchdowns. Receptions are at half PPR. Everything else is standard. There's no extra bonus points. There's no tight end premium. It's a very, very standard layout. The big thing with the best ball league, which you might probably already know, but is that your lineup, once you draft, that's it. There are no acquisitions. There are no trades. There's no injured reserve spot for if a guy gets hurt. The only thing you do is you draft your lineup and you set it and forget it. You don't even have to make a lineup decision because your lineup will be optimized every week to start whoever scores the most points. So if I draft Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and Lamar has a 20-point week and Mahomes has a 30-point week, I don't need to worry about picking which quarterback. The Underdog always will set my best lineup for me every week, which is good because it takes the headache out of it. It puts all the focus on the draft, which means the draft is so important. Now, the cool thing about best ball tournaments is the playoff structure. So normally in most leagues we're familiar with is, league of 10, 12, 14 managers, the top 6 teams make playoffs. There's a first round matchup with buys and the second round semifinal matchup. And then the two last teams remaining facing the championship in week 17, right? Not how it works in best ball. So in best ball, for most of these formats will be the first 14 weeks, you just accumulate points. And at the end of the season, the top 2 teams from your respective league or pool would advance. Then once you get to the playoffs, there's 168,000 entrants. I don't know if it'll show me how many make it into every round. I don't think it has it broken down. Looks like 28,000 will advance to the first round. So whatever that math comes out to, of that 28,000, the next round you'll be putting another set of 12 teams, but then you'll have some of the same players as guys now, obviously, because if Amari Cooper goes off for another 50-point week, there might be multiple teams with Amari Cooper in your next pool. And then normally what happens is the next round they do a very similar theme of that week 15 is an elimination round, just like it would be in a regular league. But instead of competing against only one team head to head, you're competing against the other 12, 11 teams in your pool again, or 18 teams, or whatever many they mathematically, however it works, might be a 16 team pool and they might advance 4. That's all. I'm not sure off the top of my head. For the sake of argument, let's say it's 12. And they'll say the top 3 teams from this pool will move on to the semis. And all that matters is in week 15, you got to score top 3 points in your pool. And if you do, you move on to the semis and you move up into your payout structure. So if say from, the bottom 26,000 teams right here earn $5. Like, you get your money back just for making it to this round. If you advance again to the semis, you move into this next tier of payouts, which is like this 841 to 2,800 earns $10, which isn't a lot, obviously. But it is double your money back. And in the semis, same thing. You might get put in a pool with 16 other teams, and they might say, okay, only the top two again are going to advance. So on and so forth. They do that until there's one final pool of, call it 24 teams or whatever it works out to. Maybe it'll be, 20 teams here that are all going to win $3,000 minimum, up to $100,000 if you win the whole pool. So as you can see, there's a lot less focus on having a very safe team to make playoffs and trying to get into that top 6 of your pool like you would in real life. All you have to do is get into the playoffs, and then anything can happen. In these best ball tournaments, you want to be a top 2 team. If you want to be a top 2 team so that you can advance. When we get to the strategies and scoring settings, or not scoring settings, when we get to the different strategies that I think are more commonplace to employ, I'll talk a little bit more about how you can try to go about doing that, or at least maybe some of the strategies I like to use or that I've heard of as popular theory. So let's move on to the strategy. I think, to me, the most important thing is weekly upside. I do not care about downside risk. I putting up a 0 does not matter on underdog, because if you do it right, as you saw earlier, we have 20. You have a 10-man bench. If you have 7 receivers and you only got to play 3, if you have 2 guys put up zeros, that's okay, because hopefully you have 5 other guys that are scoring points this week. So I really don't care about the guy who goes out like your Devontae Parker and gives me 4 receptions for 36 yards and occasionally a touchdown, because that's such a shitty floor. I want, don't laugh, Dan. I want the Gabe Davis on this team. I want George Pickens on these teams. I want those guys that can go nuclear. Jamison Williams, Devon A-Chain, guys that can go nuclear for a week and score me, a one-off 6 reception, 120 yards and 3 touchdown game, versus the guy who's just putting up the steady 10 point per week season. Because at the end of the season, even if Gabe Davis and whoever are both putting up 10 points per game every week, Christian Kirk or whatever, I bet you Gabe Davis makes my lineup more often than Christian Kirk, strictly for the fact that he's a big play boomer bust guy who's going to give me 6 to 8 massive weeks, and Christian Kirk might not. Kirk might not be a good example because he's a pretty good receiver, but you understand the concept. Think about Amari Cooper's 50-point weeks. Like, think about guys who put up, obviously the attractive targets are the Patrick Mahomes receivers and pass catchers, because he can go nuclear for a 5 touchdown game at any time. And that means at least one player on his team theoretically is catching 2 touchdowns. And those are the types of guys that you want to go after. Not always, but like, those players get bumped up in this format. Next is stacking. I'm sure we've talked about it before in previous podcasts, but stacking becomes so much more important in underdog. It's not the end all be all. I think it's almost becoming a saturated strategy, to the point where maybe unstacking your quarterback might be the new big brain play. I don't know. I haven't really looked into the data, and I'm probably never going to. But because if everyone's stacking, then it's not unique, and we'll get to that next. But stacking is important because it is the surefire way to guarantee that when you have that monster week, you're getting double the points. So if you take a guy like Jordan Love in the 10th round, you bet your ass you should be targeting Christian Watson and Jaden Reed and Romeo Dubes and Dontavian Wicks, and go get all of his pass catchers, because when he has that, 27 for 350 and 4 touchdown game, you're getting all of those points for Jordan Love, and then you're probably getting 2/3 of those receptions and all those yards and all the touchdowns, because you have all his pass catchers. So you're maximizing your upside. Specifically, if that falls on a week 15 game, you have Jared Goff who throws for 3 touchdowns and 2 of them go to Jamison Williams, and you happen to pair JMO and Goff, you're getting, 60 points out of the 2 of them, which is huge for your upside for that that week, especially in the superflex format where it's really hard to pair your elite quarterbacks with their elite receiver counterparts because quarterbacks go so much earlier. To me, it makes it a really, really bona fide strategy to go after your QB2 and QB3 stacks because then you can go get Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins, and Calvin Ridley for pretty cheap in a superflex draft. Same with you can go get Drake May and all of the Patriots receivers, and they don't necessarily have to score a bunch consistently every week. But the 4 games that Levis has that are monster games, and the 4 games that Drake May has that are monster games, are going to get into your lineup 8 times, and all of their receivers are going to explode. It's going to make for a great pairing when you match them all together. So that's how I kind of start. That's my tiebreaker when I start navigating through tiers. When I see 2 players that I both like, if I already have one of the quarterbacks, obviously I target the receiver for my quarterback. The next concept I think is worth talking about is correlation. And what is correlation? Let me switch. So this is no, this is really small. How do I zoom into this? Yeah, I'll zoom in. It's not going to be great because you're going to not be able to see all of them, but I have put together this correlation table here that I use when I'm drafting. You can see I must have just done a Kyler start or a Marv start in my most recent draft because I piloted the Cardinals. And what this is for week 15, 16, and 17, these are all of their opponents. I have an indicator on the left here for if they're in a dome or not, if their home field is in a dome. And then I have their opponents highlighted. And then what I normally will go through is I'll also highlight their opponents and who else they're also facing. And you try to build this synergetic team. The point of correlation is that if the Cardinals and the Rams are playing for a playoff spot in week 17, or if just that game is a absolute shootout, a 42-35 game, and you can load up on Cardinals and Rams, if you can get Kyler, Marv, Puka, Stafford, Michael Wilson and Colby Parkinson and all these random players tied to those quarterbacks, and that game becomes a shootout, you are a heavy favorite to win now your pool in week 17. Obviously, not every game that has one high scoring team means the other team also scores high, but that's the concept is you're trying to identify the shootouts and target those games. Now, I might not target the Cardinals Pats as correlation because maybe Jacoby Brissett and Drake May stink, or maybe the receivers just aren't. I don't know which receiver to take. I'm not going to heavily invest in that matchup, but I will be heavily targeting and favoriting guys in this Rams matchup if the opportunity arises. Same with, I may try to back into a correlation with that. If I do take Pats, I may say, I know I'm going to take Drake May later because he goes like in the 5th round, 6th round in Superflex and doesn't even go drafted in 1 QB, or sometimes he does. Obviously he does, but to pick round 16. I may preemptively take Justin Herbert and say, well, I know I have Kyler. I know I'm going to target Drake May later. Or maybe I'm not going to target Drake May, but I'm going to target Patriots pass catchers. But I will target Justin Herbert, and therefore I'm going to target Lad McConkey, and I'm going to target Quentin Johnston, and I'm going to start looking at who are the Chargers facing. And I might say, well, I'll also lean into the Broncos game, or I'll lean into the Bucks game. So you start playing this synergy game where you start trying to pair up matchups for these playoff rounds. Because like we said earlier, once you get to the round of 15 or around week 15 round in the quarterfinals, you're not looking for consistency. You're not looking for, I hope I score in the middle of the pack or top half of my league. No, you need to be in that top 3. So you need those massive, huge upside performances to win in advance. That's how correlation works. It's definitely harder on the fly to try to figure all this stuff out. So it's good to have 2 windows open to go back and forth between, my draft board and my correlation. All right. So strategically, another strategy, not really a strategy, but a rule for me is I never handcuff my running backs. It may sound like a good idea. I know some people have tried to make the case for, well, if I have, Devon Achane and Jalen Wright, whenever Achane gets hurt or whatever, or Raheem Mostert, whenever Achane is out with an injury, then Raheem Mostert's going to explode. And whenever Mostert's out with an injury, then Devon Achane's going to explode. And I'm like, brother, you're already playing down a player by making the assumption already that Achane is hurt means you're playing from a disadvantage. You have to, because you need the nuts outcome for most all of your players to win one of these things, or you need there's so much luck involved. We're going into these with the assumption that all things are going to go right for this team this season. Every draft is different. Obviously, if you start with a different player, you're going to assume that team's outcomes are perfect. But for that particular draft you're in, you're making the assumption that Saquon Barkley's playing 17 healthy weeks and they retire the tush push. So I'm not going to be going for Will Shipley or Kenneth Gainwell to kind of get my safety blanket, or, if I draft Kyron Williams, I'm not taking Blake Corum too. I'm under the assumption that this one $5 draft team I drafted, all my players are going to stay healthy. Because if I start trying to handcuff my running backs, I'm just playing a disadvantage. It makes no sense. You're playing one man down every week, essentially, by doing that until someone gets hurt. And then you're also another man down. When you don't handcuff your running backs, you give yourself the opportunity to, when someone else if you're taking other running backs backups, when Derrick Henry gets hurt, if I have Kyron Williams and Keaton Mitchell or Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, every week I'm only having one guy score. But if I have Keaton Mitchell, I still only have one guy score. But if Derrick Henry gets hurt, now I have two guys that are scoring. But if I have Kyron and Corum and Kyron gets hurt, that team's already fucked. Like, you can't really just be like, oh, now I got the safety of when Kyron misses a few weeks. You're playing for fourth place. I'm sorry. I think you're a bonehead if you try that strategy. That's what makes it totally different than Dynasty and Redraft, where I think handcuffing is such a smart strategy for, I guess, preserving your downside risk, protecting your downside risk of injuries. But the next strategy would be covering your bye weeks. I don't think the bye weeks are as important as it's made out to be, because at the end of the year, after week 14, they're just looking at your season-long point total. Underdog does not care if you scored 40 points in week 3 or week 7 and 180 points in week 8. You don't get a win or a loss every week. There's no record at the end of the season. All that matters is your end of season point totals. So if you happen to draft two running backs that are on bye in week 10, you get Breece Hall and Bijan. I think they're both week 10, or maybe they're week 11. I don't know. You get Jonathan Brooks and James Conner, who are both week 11. That's okay. You don't need to go then reach for another running back in week 12 because you want to secure some more points that week. Of course, yes, anything's better than a 0. So you're going to end up with 5 or 6 or 7 running backs anyways. So I wouldn't worry so much about trying to protect your bye weeks. Obviously, if it falls in the right way that you can, then sure. But I don't think it's the most important strategy to follow. I think the other strategies laid out, which was stacking, maximizing upside. And I think the next one is also very important, is uniqueness. Uniqueness is so important. Don't be a slave to ADP. Right now, these are just general guidelines. But if you want to go with a Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk start in round 1 and 2, I mean, I wouldn't advise it. But I can't think of one if you want to go Nico Collins and Tank Dell at the 2-3 turn because you want to set up for a super Texans stack, it may seem ill-advised at first because you could have waited till round 4 and got these guys. But it's but then you might be the only team that has the Nico Tank Dell combo. Or actually, that's probably a bad one because a lot of people are going to go for that pairing. If you want to go Marvin Harrison in the first and Jalen Waddle in the second to set up an obscure Marv Waddle build, not a lot of people are going to have that build because of where their ADPs fall right now. So if you reach on a guy that normally goes mid-second and take him end of the first and pair him with another mid-second guy, that's going to be a very, very unique build. So don't be worried about, I shouldn't have, you took that guy so early. Like, what an idiot. You gave up value. Guys, newsflash, if you had drafted Puka Nacua in the 5th last year, you would have been told you were a moron and you would have profited by a considerable margin. Same if you had drafted Tank Dell in the 7th or Kyron Williams in the 10th. So if you have a plan and a strategy and you want to employ it, obviously don't reach tremendously to the point where you're actually giving up that so much value that you couldn't recuperate. But if you want to take a guy 2 rounds early, I don't see the big deal. I see some people out there harping on, don't do that. Like you're foregoing too much value. And it's like, dude, you're paying $5 for a chance to win 100,000. I really don't give a shit if my optimal build doesn't maximize ADP upside. Go get the guys that create the most unique and fun build that you think this team could be an absolute killer if I get this right. If you want to go Marvin McBride, it's not a bad one, but So I'm trying to think of guys. Jonathan Taylor, take him in the first. He's not a first round pick right now. But you take JT in the first and then come back and take Devon A-Chain in the second. That's a unique build that rarely anyone else is going to have because they both go early second, late second. Very unlikely for the guy who's getting JT to also get Devon A-Chain, usually, unless they both fall to the end of the second, early third. But anyways, those are the optimal strategies. Normally, what you end up having is 2 to 3 quarterbacks, 5 to 6 running backs, 5 to 6, 7 receivers, and 2 to 3 tight ends. That's the general build, depending on how strong you go. Like if you go elite QB up top, like Lamar or Josh Allen or Mahomes, normally you would only pair that with one other quarterback because then you're trying to because you took Allen so early, you forewent some other production at the money positions like running back and wide receiver. So you have to actually take an extra receiver there. But one strategy I tried last year to no avail, it didn't work, but I thought it was a unique one was I tried the strategy I called the octagon. Excuse me. And what that was I did a 1-8-8-1 build. And what I said was fuck bye weeks. If you hit on that nuts QB and the nuts tight end for a season, like if you got the Mahomes Kelsey stack from 2 years ago, you didn't need another quarterback or tight end the whole year except for the bye weeks because they scored 20 points a week minimum every week. The marginal return of some quarterbacks occasionally outscoring Mahomes or Kelsey or tight ends outscoring Kelsey was not worth the potential of loading up on 8 running backs and wide receivers. It's a very risky strategy, but like let's say this year the Kyler McBride stack is the one, QB1 tight end one, or Josh Allen, Dalton Kincaid are the stack, or Lamar and Mark Andrews are the stack, or whoever it is. They could be unstacked, they could be naked, but I think if you can find that top 3 QB, top 3 tight end pair and stack them together, you put yourself in a position to then really maximize your dart throws at the other positions. So that was one strategy I did. But all right, that's the gist of underdog best ball drafts. I think I'm only 30 minutes in, so maybe I will do a live underdog draft. I'm just going to go through the first 10 rounds or so. I think it's good to just kind of see how it works. So let me enter right now. Enter the puppy 2. All right, so we got it back queued up. I got the 5th slot here. I got the 5th slot in this draft. So I am going to be targeting at the top, obviously the big 4 receivers. I'm going to go CD, Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, and Christian McCaffrey. I love CMC, but what I've already found with how I like these builds is I really like starting with a receiver in the first and picking up one of those value running backs in the back of the second, like your Jonathan Taylor, Saquon, A-Chain, or even getting Travis Etienne, who somehow is going in the late 3rd, early 4th, depending on where my starting draft spot is. I really like building my hero RB that way, and then that's my personal favorite way to play this the 1 QBs right now. So I'm up next here. Off the board so far was CMC went 101, Lamb went 102, Hill went 103. So I'm going to get one of Jamar Chase or Amon-Ra St. Brown, or I might go Bijan. Oh, I think I will go Bijan if Chase goes. I don't have a Bijan star yet, and I really want to see how a team turns out if I take Bijan. Fuck, Jamar Chase fell all the way to... I wish I was doing this live so I could ask the chat. Fuck it. I'm going to do a Bijan draft because I want to see how that unfolds if I do Bijan. So let me get my correlation sorted on the side here. So I got the Falcons highlighted. The Falcons have correlation with the Raiders, Giants, and Commanders. So if I go through and I just highlight Raiders, Giants, Commanders, now I have Jags, Saints, Ravens, Colts, Eagles. Saints appear twice. So I can also I have a sneaky backdoor correlation with the Saints as well. So I'm going to highlight them since I have multiple teams there. So On the way back in the second, let me go back to sharing my screen. On the way back in the second, the Falcons players, I could go for Drake London if he's there. I'm 7 picks away. I can go for Chris Olave if he's there. Devontae Adams would pair because the Raiders have the week 15 correlation with the Falcons. I don't really love. I could go for Malik Neighbors. I don't really want to take Malik Neighbors as my wide receiver one. I just am a little bit skeptical about how that Giants passing attack is going to be with Daniel frickin' Dimes leading the charge. But I could also go for Devontae Smith. I'd be reaching quite a bit, but I could set up the Eagles. Or if Saquon somehow falls, I can really set up that week 16 correlation with the Commanders and the Eagles, and then bring back the Commanders to have double correlation with the Eagles and the Falcons. So it's all in my mind right now. I'm going to move Saquon up ahead of Neighbors and Smith. But Chris Olave is my big target now. I'm 5 picks away, and he's ADP second on the board. So I doubt he's going to fall to me. But yeah, Chris Olave just went. So. Oh, and it's freaking raining, and my Jeep is missing a window right now. So my car is about to get dumped on. Although my new windows just came in like an hour ago, and I was going to go down and put the windows on, but I was like, it's still 97 fucking degrees out. So, okay, Saquon just went. I'm 1 pick away. I might just go Devontae. I don't have any Devontae yet, but that's not going to be unique. I bet you every Bijan owner has targeted Devontae in the second. So what unique build could I go for right now? Maybe Malik Neighbors is the play. I wonder how many people have actually taken. Nico Collins goes 207. Dave's punching the air right now. Yeah, I really don't want to take Devontae. It's like this Devon A. Chain is alluring just because he's such a monster. And I don't have to take running back the rest of the draft if I take A. Chain, but I'm going to go Malik Neighbors. Sets up that week 16 correlation with the Giants. The Giants have the Ravens and the Colts, which are both sexy matchups in weeks 15 and 17. Oh my God, the rain is coming down now. I hope you guys can actually hear. All right, let me start planning out my next pick. Looking down the board here, I got Michael Pittman, which gives me some correlation with the Giants. Zay Flowers would give me correlation with the Giants. And again, this is just as I'm targeting guys to I'm not going to go reaching multiple tiers down below, but I'm trying to pair up that combination of upside meets uniqueness, meets playoff correlation, meets stacking. So I'm trying to set up all of these picks on the fly in the middle of the draft. I wish you guys could see my queue too, so you can see who I was targeting. Right now, I have Michael Pittman and Zay Flowers in the queue. Devon A-Chain is still available, and if he's there at the middle of the third, I'm going to have to take him just because it's too much value to pass up. I could take Derrick Henry too. I really don't like going 2 running backs early, but it would also give me the Giants week 15 correlation. And the Ravens, I just think Derrick Henry is going to be a monster. A-Chain just went. So now I'm up. I'm going to take Michael Pittman. So now I have Michael Pittman correlation week 17 with the Giants. If that happens to be a competitive game, if the Giants are somehow competitive in the NFC East and the Colts are competitive in the AFC South, that could be a really competitive game. I don't think it's going to be, but if it is, I'm going to be one of the few people who targeted this. Not few. I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of people, but you know what I mean. Everybody wants the sexy, the Texans and the Ravens. And because the Texans play the Dolphins, the Chiefs, and the Ravens in the playoffs or the fantasy playoffs. So they have a huge, huge opportunity to score a ton of points in those games. Those should all be shootouts. I have a feeling this rain is so loud that it's going to screw up the sound quality. I might turn the gain down a little bit. Turn down the gain, so I'm going to have to speak a little bit louder. But hopefully it picks up less of the background sound. But yeah, so now I have Bijan Robinson, Malik Neighbors, and Michael Pittman Jr. You can see the way the draft is unfolding here. First tight end just went off the board, Sam Laporta. Travis Kelce goes off the board. So there could be a mini run on tight ends. Now, I didn't get to this earlier, but my personal philosophy on tight ends in these best ball leagues is they all score too similarly. I don't think Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce give me that much of an advantage over guys like Jake Ferguson and David Njoku and Evan Ingram. So I'm not targeting tight end at all whatsoever. In every draft I've done, the only time I've ever taken an early tight end is when if I have a Kyler start, I'll take McBride, and if I've had a Mahomes start, I'm okay taking Kelsey. But I think Laporta is going way too early, in my opinion. I think Kincaid is going too early because I'm not targeting early QB, and Josh Allen goes too early for my liking. Although I don't think a quarterback's gone yet in this draft. That's a little wild. Yeah, Josh Allen's still available. Jalen Hurts still available. So QBs haven't gone yet. Zay Flowers just went. So now I got to start figuring out what I'm going to do here. We got the Raiders, Giants, Commanders. I got Ravens, Colts. I should highlight the Colts now. Colts have the Broncos and the Titans. So I could take Terry McLaurin. I really like Mark Andrews if he was a little bit more of a value. I feel like he should be more depressed. I'm surprised his ADP is so high because I think he's actually a value this year, but that seems really early. I could go Anthony Richardson and go for the stack, but again, I'm not that desperate for a stack to take a quarterback this early. I think in this format, it's just not enough. There's too many better players at the skill positions to go grab a one-off guy like a quarterback or a tight end, at least this early. I prefer to have 6 receivers through my first 9 rounds, and then 2 or 3 running backs, and maybe one-off position. So I'm on the clock here. I'm going to take Terry McLaurin because I'm going to get that Week 17 correlation with the Falcons. Because I'm also going to try to target Kyle Pitts in a little bit, even though I don't believe in reaching on the one-off positions, but this will be my one. So like I said, if I like going 6 receivers, 2 or 3 running backs, and then either a tight end or a quarterback through my first 9 rounds. So now I think I'm going to target Kyle. Travis Etienne is still here. Am I an idiot? Oh, it's 4th round. Yeah, Travis Etienne is still here. We're in the almost the end of the 4th round. That's so bizarre to me for a running back who finished top 5 running backs last year, and he's only 24. It's not like he's an old head. Let me see who I'm going to go scroll down here. Kyle Pitts on the queue. I could put Calvin Ridley on there for the Titans and Colts pairing. Let me share this tab so you can see my screen now. Here's my team build on the right here. And here's what I have in my queue. Here's the ADP going down the left here. You see who I'm targeting. I think I'll take Kyle Pitts if he's there, and I'll be super heavily targeting Kirk Cousins then. And I don't know when Kirk Cousins goes. So let me get him in here so I can keep track of his ADP. His ADP is 146. So that's like around 12. So I have plenty of time. I think if I take Richardson here, I potentially don't. I might be unable to get Kyle Pitts, and I think it's more important for me to try to get that super Falcon stack because if the Falcons offense becomes what we all think it could be, I want to have multiple pieces, especially with this build. So I'm going to take Pitts here, even though I don't believe personally in taking tight end this early. He's one of those guys who has the chance to explode this year. He could be a top 3 option this year at the position. Normally, I would say don't take tight end this early, but there was a huge run on tight end. Huge run. I'm being exaggerating a little bit here, but yeah, let's take Kyle Pitts. So now I got three wide receivers. I got Bijan anchoring my hero RB setup, and I got Kyle Pitts in the middle here. And now I have 2 Falcons. Now I can start whittling away at wide receiver and running back, knowing that I'm going to be taking Kirk Cousins in the 10th or the 11th because I got to guarantee I get that super stack. And I got to keep an eye on the Drake London owner. So the London owner is over here at pick 11. So I got to make sure I take Kirk Cousins on an odd round. So on round 11 or round 9 even, I have to take him because I'm worried that he might reach on Kirk Cousins himself in round 10 or 11. So I'm going to keep an eye on him and see if he takes a quarterback early or not and see if he's got the same strategy. He might be trying to get Kirk and Rodgers later. That's the only guy I'm really worried about. Obviously, if Richardson makes it back to me, I think I got to take him. So he hasn't been taken yet. I doubt he's 2 picks away in ADP. So I don't think there's a chance he gets taken, but let's start setting up some other correlations here. Broncos, nobody. Eagles potentially, Titans. I guess Jaden Daniels is somebody else I can keep an eye on. Now that I have Terry McLaurin, I could go for the full on Commanders and Falcons stack, which I think a lot of people are going to have that because the Commanders are so cheap and the Falcons are so sexy. You're going to see a lot of people going with, Bijan in London or London in Pitts, and then backing into the rest of the Commanders teams. So I don't think it's going to be that unique to get that combo. I think it might be more enticing to get, the Falcons and the Giants and be like, okay, even though I don't believe in the Giants, in the event that they somehow figure it out this year, the rest of the Giants besides neighbors are incredibly cheap. I can take every other Giant skill player with my last four picks. You don't have to correlate anything though. Let me make that clear. You can just go for your favorite guys, but this is to me how you try to build something unique, but also something that has some synergy to it. Where you're saying if these games become shootouts, I will have both sides of that shootout. I will have both players that are scoring. So I'm 5 picks away. Anthony Richardson is still here. I don't believe in taking another quarterback here, but I mean, if I get him a full 20 picks after ADP, 12 picks after ADP, I think I have to do it, right? I guess I don't have to. Well, the London owner now has 3 running backs. I could go for Alvin Kamara for that Saints Commanders Week 16 correlation. And I don't have any Raiders, so I don't need to worry about getting Raiders. This is the hard part. Now I have too many teams highlighted, and it's distracting me. I can't believe how late Kyler and Joe Burrow go. Round 7, round 8. That's wild to me. I think I will go Kamara if he's there. I can't believe Richardson might fall to me all the way in round 6. I think if Richardson's here, I gotta take Richardson. Oh my god, and he went the pick before. That motherfucker. 5 receivers and then Anthony Richardson. That guy's got a good looking team. He's just straight up pissing orange down the board. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Alvin Kamara here. That gives me the Saints and the Commanders in week 15. I think Kamara is a undervalued option this year. I think I took him maybe a little too earlier than I would like, but then there's a big pocket of running backs coming up here in round 8 that I actually really like. Like I really, really like Najee, Ramondre, Jonathan Brooks, Samir White, Jalen Warren, Zach Moss. I think they're all super value running back picks. I'm okay taking 2 or 3 of them for my build. I think I'll go Jaden Daniels. I know it's going to be the common stack, but I'll probably target him for my round 8 pick. Oh, I don't want to do that though. Around that. So let me see here. I'm going to definitely grab another receiver on the way back here. Just got to figure out who. So coming up in ADP is Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman, Deontay Johnson, JSN, Christian Watson, and Jameson Williams. Ew, this is a gross section of receivers. No wonder this is where all the quarterbacks usually go. And the running backs, because all these receivers are fucking cheeks. For this year at least. I'm not counting any of these guys to be. I guess of these guys, the one who I think could have the biggest season would be probably Keon Coleman. This is where I might just get an unstacked player. Looks like I do have a Jags correlation with the Raiders if I do back into any Raiders. So if Brian Thomas makes it back, that's what I'll probably go with. I'm 3 picks away. BTJ is second in ADP. Yeah, I don't really like anybody else here. Ugh, this is gross. See, and I may be hyper focusing on correlations here by taking too many players from the same playoff tree, but and there goes Brian Thomas. All right, I don't have any JSN yet. Maybe I'll just take a flyer on JSN. If he happens to hit this year, that's awesome. He's my wide receiver 4. Obviously, you guys know that I love JSN. And I think he's got a ton of potential. And in the event that he does smash, great. He's my wide receiver 4. If not, I'm not worried about it. He's my wide receiver 4. I have 3 receivers ahead of him that I believe in. Not gonna lie, guys, I actually hate my fucking team. I hate this build already. I hate starting running back in the first. I hate Terry McLaurin as my wide receiver 3. I hate JSN as my wide receiver 4. Overall, I hate this fucking team. Um, so don't listen to anything. I'm kidding. Definitely, I think I had some good thought processes here, but I'm just really not liking the way this team's turning out. But this is why I think uh, best ball drafts help inform your redraft strategies because it's way better than a mock. A mock never gives you the true output that real life players would give you, and at the same time, you get an idea for how you like the way your teams turn out when you go a certain direction. So now, if you were to and now when I go into my redraft season, if ADPs don't change and there's no news or injuries in the preseason, I'm going to say there's no way I'm going running back in the top 5 picks because I don't like the way that the end of the second and early third fall for my receiver options. And if anything, I would have loved to have gotten A Chain at my second round pick. And I would have loved to have Chase and A Chain right now at the top of my draft instead of Bijan and Malik Neighbors. That's what's really pissing me off. I hate the way that this team unfolded with that start. But let's see if I can land the plane here, stealing some lingo from some content creators that I like. I'm gonna land this Bijan plane nicely. As long as I get the Kirk Cousins quarterback in, then I'm totally happy with the way this team comes out. If Tea Time 224/7 snipes Kirk Cousins from me, I'm gonna be pretty unhappy. So he's my only threat here. I think he's the only one who I think would take Kirk Cousins. Because right now, one, two, wow, Richie took two quarterbacks around 6 and 7. I think it's just squandering of value. He had such a good build here. Romeo Dobbs goes in the 8th round. What a fucking bad pick. I'm sorry. I don't think Dobbs is good at all. Um, Tyler Lockett here in the 8th. I'm surprised he goes after JSN in ADP after the season. I guess. I mean, I think JSN should play better than Lockett this year, but I guess we'll never know. All right, so on the way back here in the 8th, I'm gonna target. I might get Rashid Shaheed here. Oh my god, I hate these receivers left. No, I'm not going Rashid Shaheed. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Do I take a uncorrelated Najee? Probably. I like Najee Harris a lot. I could take Tony Pollard, who I think is super cheap right now. That's what I think I'm gonna take. Um, Najee or Tony Pollard is who I'm gonna grab here. That'll give me 3 running backs. I don't have to target another running back at all if I do that. Uh, I basically can just, yeah, Najee just goes. So I'm going to take TP. Titans have a Colts matchup in week 16. That could be a division matchup that matters. Pollard could be a monster in the receiving game this year. I don't think Ty J. Spears is that big of a threat. I think Tony Pollard does everything Ty J. Spears does, but better. And I think we're getting Pollard at a 7-round discount off we got a 6-round discount of what we got him for last year. Sign me up for that. So now my build through 8 rounds is 4 receivers, 3 running backs, and a tight end. I don't like it because I want to have 2 more receivers by round 9. So I kind of butchered my routine build, but I'm just gonna fly off the rails and see how this falls because now I'm gonna take Jaden Daniels on the way back if he's still there. If not, I'll go Rashid Shaheed. Um, and just pray, just pray because the team's not unfolding the way I wanted it to. So we'll stay until Kirk Cousins gets picked. How about that? And then I'll sign off in this draft. So hopefully you guys got an idea of the sort of the strategy that at least goes through my head. Doesn't mean this is the only way to do it. Obviously not, or else I would have already won a buttload of money doing this. There's so much randomness that goes into it, but I do like that there are certain ways you can try to gain an edge on your average drafter, and this is kind of one of them. Brian Robinson. I totally forgot. I want to get Commanders. I think Eckler might be a good buy later. I think Eckler is going to have spike weeks, and I think Brian Robinson is going to be your routine 10 to 12 point per week guy. And I think Eckler is going to be a complete 0 for most weeks, except he's going to have a few 8 reception games where the game plan actually is to get the ball to Eckler. But I don't think he's going to be reliable this year. He's not somebody I'm counting on. But as my running back 4 by now, I'm okay with taking him here if Jaden Daniels gets sniped from me. See, Caleb just goes off the board. I think I'm in the clear. Brock Bowers goes off. Nice. Dak and Jordan Love are still ahead of me. Rashid Shaheed goes. So I'll take Jaden Daniels. I really like that, and especially if I compare him with Kirk, because it's two really risky quarterbacks that could, if they both smash, oh my God, especially with the value you're getting on them, you're able to fill out the rest of your team before getting him. So now the real test here is if T Time 24/7 out of 11 spot, if he takes Kirk Cousins here, I'm punching a hole in my monitor and I'm throwing my computer away. Because I will have just squandered $5. No, I have obviously some mental backup plans. Let's see. So on the way back here, I got Brian Robinson queued up. I got Austin Eckler queued up. I'll only take one of them, obviously, like we talked about. You don't handcuff your running backs in this format. I got Jacoby Myers queued up. I think Jacoby's actually a really good sneaky pick. If I could target here, if the running backs go. This is the window where running backs start flying off the board. You see all these guys that pissed orange in the beginning, went 5, 6 receivers to start. They're now filling out their running back rooms by pounding RB. So yeah, T Time still doesn't have a quarterback. If he doesn't, he's definitely taking Kirk Cousins on the way back in round 11. So round 11 pick 125 will be where I target Kirk. So I'm only going to be able to get one more skill position player before I'd have two quarterbacks. It's a little nerve wracking, but I do like the rest of my build in terms of the structure. I have three strong candidates to be at least RB2s this year or better, and I think obviously everyone's pretty hopeful on Bijan potentially being RB1 overall. So that really gives me some safety at running back. I don't need to go 6 or 7 running backs deep to make this team work. I can stop at 5 even if I want to, and I can really fill out the bottom of my roster with just tons of wide receivers. Also, if I do get Kirk Cousins here, I only need 2 quarterbacks because I'm, again, like we said earlier, we're planning on the nuts outcome for your players. I'm not sitting here going, "Oh, Daniels could be shoddy and Kirk could be hurt, so maybe I should draft a third quarterback to fill in those." No, the team's already fucked if Kirk and Daniels aren't good. So we're leaning into the fact they're both going to be great. And if they both suck, then who cares? It's $5 out the window. All of their dependent parts that I have on this team are also screwed if they're not good. So why not just lean into that high variance upside? So I won't be drafting a third quarterback when I get Kirk on the way back here. But it's coming up on my pick. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, and Jacoby Myers are in my queue. I think I'll take Brian Robinson if he's there. And I think I'll take Jacoby if he goes. I'm getting one of the 3 right now, guaranteed. Richie. Oh, you motherfucker. All right, I'll take Jacoby. Jacob. All right, I don't mind that at all. I think Jacoby Myers he had some huge boom weeks last year. I think we're the first 2-3 weeks of the season, he had 3 25-point plus games. So as much as he seems like a safety valve type receiver and a very safe floor receiver, he's actually shown that he has a ton of upside as well. So all right. I wish this draft was going a little faster. Sorry, guys. We're just finished. We're at an hour total. I'm gonna get Kirk on the way back here, and then I'm gonna sign off. I have to take Kirk this early because I can't rely on T Time not taking him to stack with London. So yeah, Brock and Dak go. People are already starting to grab their QB2, so I can't even be confident that somebody else here might not grab him too. We still got T-Law, Tua, Goff, and Herbert before Kirk, so I'm pretty confident he's going to make his way back to me. But I wouldn't be lying. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I'm a little nervous right now that somehow someone's going to fucking ruin my build by taking Kirk. So, fingers crossed. Okay, Tua just goes. No more purple. No more purple. Tua goes. This guy's not taking quarterback. He already has 2. Next guy's not taking quarterback. He already has 2. My only real threat right now is EJ Crane. Has no quarterbacks yet. He's got JJ and Devontae, George Pickens, and Hollywood. He has no real. Maybe he'll take Jordan Love. Jordan Love hasn't gone yet. Jordan Love already went. So he's probably going to just go late quarterbacks too. He'll probably get JJ McCarthy. He'll probably get Aiden O'Connell, and he'll probably get Russell Wilson and just say, no matter what, I'm getting all of the stacks with my top receivers. So whenever they catch a touchdown, I get double points. That's probably a cool strategy to go for, is just spamming low end QBs with your top to pair with your top receivers. So every time they catch a touchdown, you get 12 points or 10 points, whatever. Um, Interesting strategy. I've actually never thought of doing that because I don't usually start with quarterbacks with bad QB. I mean, wide receivers that have bad quarterbacks at the top. One more pick. Let me get Kirk. And I got him. Fellas, where's that? What's that FBI meme? Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. I got the super Falcon stack. I got the Terry McLaurin Commanders Week 17 stack. I have the Commanders and Saints mini correlation with Alvin Kamara. I got the Malik Neighbors and Michael Pittman correlation to the Giants and the Falcons. Overall, I don't hate this build. I don't love it. Obviously, I told you guys earlier, but here's a little taste of just how underdog drafts work in my mind. And with that being said, I'm going to sign off and hopefully see you guys with Dave next week for another episode.